Your Ford transmission is dying right now, and you're the one killing it. Not because you're doing anything obviously wrong, but because Ford never told you about the 7 invisible mistakes that destroy 10-speed and 6-speed transmissions faster than anything else. I've been a Ford technician for over 17 years, and I've replaced hundreds of transmissions that didn't need to die. Today, we're exposing the 7 deadly habits that are costing Ford owners thousands in premature transmission failures. Mistake number 7, running low transmission fluid. This sounds obvious, but it's happening constantly, and most owners have no idea their fluid is low until the transmission starts slipping. Here's what makes this particularly dangerous on modern Fords. The 10-speed and 6-speed transmissions use very thin, low-viscosity fluid to reduce parasitic drag and improve fuel economy. This thin fluid is great for efficiency, but it means the transmission is extremely sensitive to fluid level. Just 1 quart low, and you're creating conditions for catastrophic damage. When transmission fluid drops below the proper level, the pump starts sucking air along with fluid. This creates aeration, tiny air bubbles mixed into the fluid. Aerated fluid cannot maintain proper hydraulic pressure. The clutch packs slip because they're not getting full clamping force. The valve body solenoids malfunction because they're trying to control foamy fluid instead of pure liquid. And here's the worst part: aerated fluid cannot cool or lubricate properly. Internal components start overheating and wearing at an accelerated rate. I inspected a 2020 F-150 with a 10R80 that came in with harsh shifting at just 48,000 miles. Checked the fluid level and found it was 2 quarts low. The owner had no idea, no warning lights, no obvious leaks, just gradual fluid loss through a weeping seal that went unnoticed. By the time we caught it, the clutch packs showed significant wear. We did a complete fluid flush and refill, but the damage was done. 6 months later, the transmission failed completely and needed a $4,500 rebuild. Here's what Ford doesn't make clear: these transmissions don't have traditional dipsticks on most models after 2017. You can't easily check the fluid level in your driveway like you could on older trucks. Ford claims the fluid is sealed for life and doesn't need checking. That's technically true if nothing ever goes wrong, but in the real world, seals weep. Cooler lines develop tiny leaks, and fluid levels drop gradually over years. The solution requires being proactive. Every oil change, have your shop verify transmission fluid level using the proper procedure. It requires getting the transmission to a specific temperature and checking through the fill plug on the side of the transmission pan. Most quick lube places won't do this because it takes extra time. Find a shop that will, or learn to do it yourself. The procedure is in the service manual. Watch for warning signs that fluid might be low. Delayed engagement when shifting from park to drive. Harsh or slipping shifts, especially when the transmission is cold. Whining or humming noises from under the truck. Any of these symptoms require immediate fluid level verification. Catching low fluid early prevents thousands in damage. Ignoring it guarantees transmission failure. A fluid level check costs nothing if you do it yourself, maybe $20 to $40 if a shop does it. Compare that to a $4,000 transmission replacement, and you'll understand why this simple check is critical. Mistake number 6, ignoring transmission temperature. Your transmission has an operating temperature range where it performs optimally and lasts longest. That range is typically 170 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Go above 220 degrees, and you're causing permanent damage with every mile you drive. Here's the problem. Most Ford owners have no idea what temperature their transmission is running because Ford doesn't display it on the dashboard. Transmission fluid breaks down rapidly at elevated temperatures. At 240 degrees, the fluid oxidizes at twice the normal rate. At 260 degrees, it oxidizes 4 times faster. At 280 degrees, you're destroying the fluid so rapidly that it loses its protective properties within hours instead of thousands of miles. The clutch packs rely on friction modifiers in the fluid to engage smoothly. When the fluid overheats and breaks down, those friction modifiers burn off. The clutches start grabbing harshly or slipping, and once that process starts, It accelerates quickly toward total failure. The valve body solenoids are equally sensitive to heat. These electronic components control fluid flow to various clutch packs. Excessive heat degrades the solenoid seals and can cause internal failures that lead to erratic shifting or complete transmission failure. I've seen 10R80 transmissions need complete valve body replacements at 60,000 miles because of chronic overheating. A valve body replacement runs $1,800 to $2,500 in parts and labor. Towing is the primary cause of transmission overheating, but it's not the only cause. Stop-and-go traffic on hot summer days, driving in mountainous terrain, even aggressive city driving can push transmission temperatures dangerously high. The factory transmission cooler is barely adequate for normal use and completely insufficient for heavy towing or extreme conditions. Here's what dealers won't tell you. Installing an aftermarket transmission cooler is the single best investment you can make for transmission longevity, especially if you tow anything regularly. A quality aftermarket cooler runs $250 to $400 installed and can drop transmission temperatures by 30 to 50 degrees under load. That temperature reduction extends fluid life dramatically and prevents the clutch pack damage that kills transmissions. For anyone who tows more than 5,000 pounds regularly, an aftermarket cooler isn't optional. It's mandatory if you want your transmission to survive past 80,000 miles. I've seen the evidence repeatedly. Trucks with aftermarket coolers routinely hit 200,000 miles with original transmissions still shifting smoothly. Trucks without upgraded cooling need transmission work at 70 to 90,000 miles. You also need a way to monitor transmission temperature. Install an OBD2 scanner that displays live transmission temperature data, or add an aftermarket gauge. Several companies make gauge pods that mount in the A-pillar or on the dashboard and display transmission temperature in real time. When you can see the temperature, you can make informed decisions. If it's climbing above 210 degrees while towing, you know to slow down, downshift manually, or pull over and let it cool. The cost of monitoring is minimal. A quality OBD2 scanner with live data runs $50 to $120. An aftermarket temperature gauge kit costs $80 to $150 installed. Compare that to a $4,000 transmission replacement, and the math becomes very clear. Prevention through monitoring and upgraded cooling is always cheaper than repair. Mistake number 5, using the wrong transmission fluid. This mistake is killing transmissions faster than almost anything else, and it's happening because parts stores, quick lube shops, and even some Ford dealerships are using incorrect fluid. Modern Ford transmissions require very specific fluid formulations. The 10R80 requires Mercon ULV, which stands for ultra-low viscosity. The 6R80 requires Mercon LV. These are not interchangeable, and using the wrong fluid causes immediate problems that lead to long-term failure. Here's what makes this so critical. Mercon ULV is an extremely thin fluid, thinner than most people realize. We're talking about a viscosity that's closer to water than traditional transmission fluid. It's designed specifically for the 10-speed transmission's tight tolerances and complex hydraulics. The valve body passages in a 10R80 are machined to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. The solenoids controlling fluid flow are incredibly precise. This entire system was engineered around that specific fluid viscosity. Use thicker Mercon LV in a 10R80, and the valve body solenoids can't control fluid flow properly. The thicker fluid resists movement through those tiny passages. Response time slows down. Shifts become harsh or delayed because the solenoids can't modulate pressure accurately. Clutch apply pressures become inconsistent. Some clutches get too much pressure, others not enough. Over time, this causes accelerated clutch pack wear and valve body damage that shows up as hard shifts, flares between gears, and eventually complete failure. The reverse is equally problematic. Put thin Mercon ULV in a 6R80 that requires thicker Mercon LV, and the clutch packs can't maintain proper clamping force. The fluid is too thin to build adequate hydraulic pressure in the clutch apply circuits. The clutches slip under load, generating tremendous heat and wearing the friction material rapidly. That burnt friction material contaminates the entire fluid system, clogging passages and damaging seals throughout the transmission. I've seen 6R80 transmissions develop shudder and slipping at 50,000 miles because a quick lube place used the wrong fluid during a service. The owner thought they were being responsible by getting the transmission serviced, but incorrect fluid destroyed what would have been a perfectly good transmission. Here's the part that makes me angry. Many parts stores and quick lube chains stock universal ATF that claims to be compatible with all Ford specifications. The bottles have labels showing compatibility with Mercon, Mercon V, Mercon LV, Mercon ULV, and a dozen other manufacturers' specs. They'll tell you it meets all requirements. Technically, some of these fluids might meet the bare minimum specifications on paper, but they're not formulated identically to Motorcraft fluids. The base oil stock is different. The friction modifiers, detergents, and viscosity improvers are different. The additive packages are completely different formulations. Those differences might seem minor, but they matter tremendously in precision transmissions with tight tolerances. The friction modifiers in genuine Motorcraft fluid are specifically calibrated for Ford's clutch pack materials. Universal fluids use generic friction modifiers that work acceptably in many transmissions, but optimally in none. Over time, those small differences compound into major problems. I had a customer bring in a 2019 F-150 with harsh shifting and shuddering at 42,000 miles. He'd been religious about maintenance and had the transmission serviced at a quick lube place at 35,000 miles. They charged him $180 for a transmission service and assured him they used quality fluid. What they actually used was a universal ATF instead of Motorcraft Mercon ULV. That incorrect fluid caused the torque converter clutch to shudder within 7,000 miles. It wore the clutch packs. It contaminated the entire system with friction material particles that circulated through every passage and valve. We had to do a complete flush, replace the torque converter, replace the valve body filter, and install all new genuine Motorcraft fluid. The repair cost him $2,800. Using the correct fluid from the beginning would have cost maybe $40 more than the universal fluid he thought he was saving money on. That $40 savings cost him $2,800 in repairs. The solution is simple, but requires vigilance. Only use Motorcraft brand transmission fluid in the exact specification your Ford requires. For 10 R80 transmissions, that's Motorcraft Mercon ULV, part number XT-12-QD ULV. For 6 R80 transmissions, that's Motorcraft Mercon LV, part number XT-10-QLVC. Write those part numbers down. Keep them in your glove box. Don't let anyone convince you that Universal fluids or other brands are just as good. They might work short-term, but long-term. You're gambling with a $4,000 transmission. If you have your transmission serviced, verify beforehand that the shop will use genuine Motorcraft fluid. Get it in writing on the service order. Some shops will agree verbally, then use bulk Universal fluid anyway to save money and increase their profit margin. They buy Universal fluid for $12 per gallon and charge you for Motorcraft at $28 per gallon. That profit margin is too tempting for dishonest shops. Check the bottles after the service is complete. Legitimate shops won't mind showing you the empty Motorcraft bottles to prove they use the correct fluid. If they can't produce empty bottles or get defensive when you ask, you know they didn't use what they promised. Mistake number 4. Towing in overdrive or eco mode. This is the mistake that's destroying more F-150 and Super Duty transmissions than any other single factor. Towing heavy loads while leaving your transmission in normal drive mode, or worse, eco mode, creates conditions that guarantee premature failure. Here's what happens when you tow in the wrong drive mode. In normal mode, the transmission programming prioritizes fuel economy and smooth shifts. It tries to get into the highest gear possible as quickly as possible to keep RPMs low. This works fine for normal unloaded driving, but when you're pulling 6,000 to 10,000 pounds, forcing the transmission into 9th or 10th gear at highway speeds is disastrous. The torque converter lockup clutch stays engaged to maximize efficiency, but with heavy load and high gear, the engine doesn't have enough power to maintain speed without the torque converter multiplying torque. The lockup clutch starts slipping, generating tremendous heat. The clutch material overheats, glazes, and begins to shudder. Once torque converter shudder starts, it accelerates rapidly. The vibration damages the lockup clutch further, contaminates the fluid with friction material particles, and those particles circulate through the entire transmission, causing wear on every component they contact. Eco mode makes everything worse. It's specifically programmed to use the absolute highest gear possible at the lowest RPM possible. Towing in eco mode is asking your transmission to commit suicide. The computer forces tall gearing, keeps the torque converter locked even under heavy load, and limits power output. Your engine lugs, the transmission overheats, and components wear at 10 times the normal rate. I replaced the transmission in a 2018 F-150 with just 68,000 miles last year. The owner towed a 7,000-pound camper every weekend in eco mode because he thought he was saving fuel. The torque converter was destroyed, the clutch packs were burnt, the valve body showed heat damage. Total cost for the replacement, $4,800. He saved them maybe $200 in fuel over 2 years of towing, then spent $4,800 fixing the transmission he destroyed. Here's what you must do when towing. Switch to tow haul mode every single time you hook up a trailer. Tow haul mode reprograms the transmission specifically for towing. It holds lower gears longer, delays upshifts, provides aggressive downshifting for engine braking, and modifies torque converter lockup strategy to prevent clutch slippage. These changes protect your transmission from the exact damage that kills it prematurely. For Super Duty trucks with the 10R140 transmission, there are additional tow modes for different trailer weights. Use the appropriate mode for your trailer weight. The computer adjusts shift programming, lockup strategy, and even cooling fan operation based on the mode you select. Ford engineered these modes specifically to protect the transmission when working hard. Use them. On steep grades while towing, manually select a lower gear using the gear selector. Don't let the transmission hunt between gears trying to maintain speed. Lock it in 5th or 6th gear and let the engine do the work. Higher RPMs generate more power and less heat in the transmission than letting it slip in 9th gear trying to maintain highway speed uphill. Monitor your transmission temperature while towing. If it climbs above 200 degrees, you're working the transmission too hard. Slow down, downshift, or pull over, and idle in neutral for a few minutes to let it cool. 10 minutes of cooling can prevent permanent damage that would otherwise cost thousands to repair. Mistake number 3. Never changing transmission. Fluid. Ford's official position is that transmission fluid in the 10, R80, and 6R80 is sealed for life. They don't specify a change interval in the maintenance schedule. According to Ford, the fluid should last the entire life of the vehicle. Here's what they don't tell you. Sealed for life means sealed until the warranty expires, and maybe a few years beyond if you're lucky. It doesn't mean the fluid stays clean and effective for 200,000 miles. Transmission fluid degrades over time from heat, contamination, and chemical breakdown. The friction modifiers that allow smooth clutch engagement break down. The detergents that keep components clean become saturated with contaminants. The viscosity improvers shear down, causing the fluid to thin out. By 60,000 miles, that lifetime fluid has lost a significant percentage of its protective properties. Independent testing by fluid analysis labs consistently shows that Ford transmission fluids are severely degraded by 70 to 90,000 miles. The fluid turns dark brown or black. Particulate contamination increases dramatically. Total acid number rises, indicating the fluid is becoming corrosive. Yet Ford's official recommendation is to never change it unless you're in severe service conditions. Here's the truth mechanics won't say out loud because it contradicts manufacturer recommendations. Every transmission I've rebuilt or replaced with under 100,000 miles still had the original factory fill fluid inside. Every transmission I've seen that went past 150,000 miles with no issues had fluid changed at least once, usually twice. The correlation is undeniable and consistent. I pulled the pan on a 2017 F-150-10R80 with 92,000 miles that was shifting harshly. The fluid was black. The pan had a layer of metallic sludge coating the bottom. The filter was clogged with friction material particles. That's not lifetime fluid. That's fluid that died 30,000 miles ago and has been destroying the transmission ever since. We flushed the system, installed new motorcraft, Mercon ULV, replaced the filter, and the harsh shifting improved significantly, but the damage was already done. The clutch pack showed wear, and I told the owner to expect a rebuild within the next year. The solution contradicts Ford's official recommendation, but it's backed by real-world evidence from thousands of transmissions. Change your transmission fluid every 40 to 50,000 miles if you want maximum transmission life. Use the drain and fill method, not a flush. Drop the pan, replace the filter, install new fluid. This method only replaces about 40% of the total fluid, but it's the safest approach. Over 3 services, you've essentially replaced all the fluid gradually without shocking the system. Each service costs about $180 to $250 if you have a shop do it. You can do it yourself for about $80 to $100 in parts if you're mechanically inclined. The pan gasket, filter, and fluid for a 10R80 run about $70 to $90 at wholesale prices. Compare that to a $4,000 transmission replacement. And the math is simple. 3 fluid services over 150,000 miles cost $750 and can prevent that $4,000 failure. Some people worry that changing old fluid in a high-mileage transmission will cause problems. There's some truth to that concern if the fluid has never been changed and the transmission has over 100,000 miles. At that point, varnish deposits are holding worn components together. Fresh detergent-rich fluid can loosen those deposits and cause shifting issues. But that's an argument for changing fluid early and regularly, not for never changing it at all. Start fluid changes at 40 to 50,000 miles and continue every 40 to 50,000 miles after that. Your transmission will last twice as long as one that never gets serviced, and it will shift better throughout its entire life. Mistake number 2. Cold weather full throttle acceleration. This mistake is particularly common in northern states during winter, and it's destroying transmissions in ways that most owners don't understand. When temperatures drop below freezing, transmission fluid becomes significantly thicker. That thick, cold fluid doesn't flow properly through the intricate valve body passages and can't lubricate clutch packs effectively during the first few minutes of operation. Modern Ford transmissions use very thin fluid for efficiency, as we discussed earlier, but even thin fluid becomes viscous at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or below. The transmission pump has to work much harder to circulate cold fluid. Hydraulic pressure builds slowly. The clutch packs don't receive full clamping force immediately. And if you jump in your truck on a cold morning and immediately accelerate hard, you're forcing shifts before the transmission is ready. Here's the specific damage this causes. Cold, thick fluid causes the clutch packs to slip during engagement because they can't build full hydraulic pressure instantly. That slippage generates heat and friction. The clutch material wears microscopically with each cold start acceleration. Over hundreds of cold starts through a winter season, that microscopic wear accumulates into measurable clutch pack wear. By the time spring arrives, you've taken thousands of miles of life off your transmission without realizing it. The valve body solenoids also suffer. They're designed to operate with fluid at normal temperature and viscosity. Cold fluid makes them work harder, and if there's any wear or contamination in the solenoid, cold operation accelerates failure. I've seen solenoid failures at 50 to 70,000 miles on trucks in cold climates that are driven hard immediately after cold starts. I worked on a 2020 F-150 owned by a contractor in Minnesota. Every morning, he'd start the truck, let it idle for 30 seconds, then drive immediately to job sites, often accelerating hard to merge into traffic. After 3 winters of this pattern, his transmission started shifting harshly and throwing codes at just 49,000 miles. We diagnosed multiple solenoid failures and clutch pack wear. The repair cost $3,200. His driving pattern in cold weather caused the damage. The solution requires patience and discipline during cold weather. Start your truck and let it idle in park for at least 2 to 3 minutes before driving. This allows the transmission to begin circulating fluid and warming up. On extremely cold mornings below 0 degrees, idle for 5 minutes. Use that time to scrape windows, load equipment, or check your route. When you first start driving, keep acceleration gentle for the first few miles. Don't use full throttle until the transmission temperature gauge shows at least 100 degrees, if you have one installed. If you don't have a temperature gauge, wait until you've driven at least 5 miles at moderate speeds before accelerating hard. Some Ford trucks have a cold weather or winter mode feature. This mode modifies shift programming to account for cold fluid. It holds gears longer, limits aggressive shifts, and generally protects the transmission during warm-up. Use this mode if your truck has it. For trucks that spend nights in unheated parking areas in extreme cold, consider a block heater or a transmission pan heater. These keep the fluids warm overnight, eliminating the cold start problem entirely. A transmission pan heater costs about $60 to $80 and plugs into a standard outlet. In severe winter climates, this small investment can prevent thousands in transmission damage over the life of your vehicle. Mistake number 1. Using auto start-stop while towing. This is the worst mistake Ford owners make, and it's happening because Ford actively promotes auto start-stop as a fuel-saving feature without explaining the transmission damage it causes under low. Auto start-stop shuts off your engine every time you come to a complete stop, then restarts it when you release the brake. In theory, this saves fuel. In practice, especially while towing, it's destroying transmissions at an alarming rate. Here's what happens inside the transmission during an auto start-stop cycle while towing. When the engine shuts off, hydraulic pressure in the transmission drops immediately. The pump stops turning, and pressure bleeds down. The clutch packs release. The valve body solenoids lose power. Then, when you release the brake and the engine restarts, the transmission has to rebuild hydraulic pressure from zero, recharge all the circuits, and re-engage clutches to hold the selected gear, all while managing the weight and momentum of the trailer behind you. This pressure drop and rapid reapplication creates tremendous stress on clutch packs and hydraulic seals. Every stop and start cycle while towing is equivalent to dozens of normal shifts in terms of wear. The clutch material compresses and releases rapidly, generating heat spikes. The seals in the valve body expand and contract with pressure changes, accelerating wear. Towing in heavy traffic with auto start-stop active means your transmission might go through 50 to 100 stop-start cycles in a single trip. Each cycle wears the clutches microscopically. After a summer of towing a camper in traffic with auto start-stop active, you've put the equivalent of 20,000 miles of shift wear on components in just a few thousand actual miles. The torque converter also suffers. During restart, the torque converter has to accelerate the transmission input shaft, internal components, and the entire mass of the trailer from a complete stop. This creates tremendous shock loads on the torque converter lockup clutch and the internal stator assembly. Over hundreds of cycles, this shock loading can crack the torque converter housing or damage internal components. I replaced a transmission in a 2021 F-150 at just 53,000 miles because the owner towed a camper extensively with auto start-stop enabled. The clutch packs were heavily worn. The valve body seals were damaged. The torque converter had internal damage. Total repair cost was $5,200. Ford refused warranty coverage because they claimed the damage was caused by severe use, even though the owner had followed the owner's manual recommendations for towing. Here's what makes this particularly insidious. Ford designed the auto start-stop system to meet federal fuel economy testing requirements. Those tests don't include towing heavy trailers in traffic. The system was never validated for the stress it creates in real-world towing conditions. But Ford leaves it active by default and doesn't warn owners to disable it while towing. The solution is straightforward, but requires action every time you tow. Before you hook up your trailer, press the Auto Start-Stop Disable button on your dashboard. The button typically has an A with a circle and a slash through it. Press it once, and the system stays off for that drive cycle. Unfortunately, Ford requires you to disable it manually every single time you start the truck. There's no factory setting to permanently disable auto start-stop. Aftermarket companies recognized this problem and developed permanent auto start-stop defeat modules. These plug into your vehicle's electrical system and automatically disable start-stop every time you start the truck. They cost $100 to $150 and install in about 15 minutes. For anyone who tows regularly, this modification is essential. It eliminates the risk of forgetting to disable start-stop manually and provides permanent protection. Some owners worry that disabling auto start-stop voids warranty. Technically, a simple electronic module that only affects the start-stop system shouldn't void transmission warranty because it doesn't modify transmission programming or operation. But dealers can be unpredictable. If you're concerned about warranty, simply disable start-stop manually using the dashboard button every time you tow. The critical thing is ensuring start-stop never operates while you're towing a trailer. Even when not towing, auto start-stop creates additional wear on transmissions compared to conventional operation. Every start-stop cycle is another pressure drop and reapplication. Over the life of the vehicle, you're adding tens of thousands of additional shift cycles that wouldn't otherwise occur. Many mechanics privately recommend disabling auto start-stop permanently, even for non-towing driving, simply to extend transmission life. You just learned the 7 deadly mistakes that are killing Ford transmissions prematurely. Every single one of these mistakes is completely preventable with awareness and simple changes to your maintenance routine and driving habits. The total cost to prevent all 7 mistakes is maybe $1,200 to $1,500 over 100,000 miles. That includes fluid changes, an aftermarket cooler, proper fluid, a start-stop disable module, and a temperature monitor. Compare that to a $4,000 to $6,000 transmission replacement, and the return on investment is obvious. How many of these mistakes have you been making without realizing it?